Imagine that you have the power to release incredible blessings, open closed doors, and win battles you didn't even know were being fought. Yes, this might sound exaggerated, but the truth is that in the spiritual realm, your words carry a weight we often don't understand. Prayer isn't just a religious ritual, it's a powerful weapon, capable of transforming realities. And you know what's even more intriguing? Many times your blessing is already on its way, but something invisible could be blocking your victory. This spiritual secret, which few people know, is what separates those who live a life of miracles from those who give up at the first sign of difficulty. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to be constantly blessed, while others struggle to see results? It might be that the difference lies in how they face their spiritual battles. The good news is that you don't have to stay stuck in this struggle. There is a key to unlocking all of this, and what you're about to discover will change the way you approach your prayers and your relationship with the divine. The curious thing is that most of the time the divine answer is closer than you think. However, one thing may be preventing it from reaching you: your own giving up. Yes, giving up too soon can block your angel's path. But don't worry, because today you will understand how to turn this around. Are you ready to discover the secret that will transform your spiritual life and open the doors to a new level of faith, persistence, and victory? Let's talk about the power of prayer, a topic that is often underestimated or treated as something mystical and distant. However, if you look closely, you'll realize that prayer is like an intimate dialogue with the spiritual realm, something that goes beyond words spoken at random. When you pray, even silently, your words echo powerfully in this vast spiritual scene where angels and miracles can be moved by your faith. Jesus himself said in Luke 11:9, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find." This shows us that prayer is not just a symbolic act, but an invitation to interact with greater forces capable of transforming any reality. Have you ever thought about how persistence in prayer can generate unexpected results? Many times, people stop praying because they think they are not being heard. But what happens behind the spiritual scenes may be exactly the opposite. The thing is, the spiritual realm works differently from our physical world, and the impact of prayer may not be seen immediately. Imagine someone praying for a solution to a health problem. Just because the healing didn't come on the first day doesn't mean the prayer wasn't heard. It could be that in the spiritual world, angels are in motion to bring that answer. When the video talks about miracles, it is not referring to distant events beyond our reach. Miracles can happen every day, the moment you decide to connect with the divine in an intentional way. That doesn't mean it will be easy. Like anything worthwhile, prayer also requires persistence and focus. Have you ever heard of people who, after years of prayer, finally see changes in their lives? These are real examples that fervent prayer, made with passion and faith, can indeed transform even the most impossible situations. But of course, none of this works if there isn't a heart truly connected to its faith. Prayer is not a magic formula. It's a practice that involves surrender and belief that the spiritual realm responds to our words, even if we don't see immediate answers. And this is where a key concept comes in: persistence. There's no point in praying once and expecting results. You need to keep going, believing, and not giving up. And speaking of persistence, have you heard about the spiritual battles that take place while we pray? This brings us to an even deeper point. Now, when we talk about spiritual battles, it's important to understand that what happens in the invisible world is as real as what we see around us. The prayers we make are like arrows launched into the spiritual realm, and their effect can be great. In the video, the story of Daniel illustrates this very clearly. While Daniel was praying, he had no idea that an angel was fighting a demonic prince for 21 days to bring the answer to his prayer. This invisible battle shows that there are spiritual forces at work, fighting both to prevent and to carry out the miracles we ask for. This concept of spiritual battles is deep because it makes us reflect on the power our prayers have to move the spiritual realm. Imagine, for example, that you are praying for something important, like the healing of a loved one or a job opportunity. While you continue to pray, there is a struggle happening in the invisible, with angels and principalities in conflict. The scriptures tell us in Daniel 10:12-13 that this battle can be fought for days or even weeks. But the divine answer was already released the moment you began to pray. Persistence, in this case, is the key. It's fascinating to think that many times we don't see these spiritual battles, but they are happening right there, in the exact moment we persist in prayer. This leads us to consider the importance of not giving up easily. Often people pray once, don't see an answer and give up. However, as Daniel's story shows, the spiritual victory may be just a few days away, and giving up could mean blocking the answer that was already on its way. This example also teaches us that the time we wait is not wasted time, but a time of preparation and spiritual battle. Spiritual battles also remind us that we are not alone in our struggles. Just as Daniel had the help of the archangel Michael to defeat the prince of Persia, we too can rely on divine help in our difficulties. The Bible makes it clear that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, Ephesians 6:12. Therefore, no matter how difficult the situation seems, there is always a spiritual movement happening in response to our prayers. And when we talk about spiritual struggles, there is a very important lesson we can learn from the story of Daniel's angel. The angel's fight against the Prince of Persia shows us a spiritual reality that we often don't consider. Imagine that one of your prayers has been answered, but something in the spiritual realm is blocking that answer. That's exactly what happened with Daniel. The angel sent to bring him the answer was stopped by a powerful demon, and this was only resolved with the intervention of the archangel Michael. This spiritual confrontation teaches us that there are forces working against the blessings we ask for, and that sometimes the divine answer faces resistance before it reaches us. This type of spiritual resistance can be seen in our own lives. Maybe you're praying for a change in your finances or a breakthrough in your career, and it feels like nothing is happening. It could be that, just like in Daniel's case, your answer has already been released but is facing spiritual blockage. The forces of darkness work to prevent good from reaching us, and it's in this moment that our persistence and faith are tested. The Bible tells us that these obstacles exist, but that victory is guaranteed for those who don't give up. The role of the Archangel Michael in this battle is fascinating. He is described as a warrior angel of high rank in the spiritual realm, and his intervention was crucial for Daniel's prayer to be answered. This makes us reflect on the structure of the spiritual realm, where there are hierarchies of angels and demons, all involved in a constant battle. Daniel's story is a powerful reminder that the spiritual realm is always in motion, and our prayers are an active part of this dynamic. When we think about this spiritual fight, we realize that our prayers may have a much greater impact than we imagine. Every prayer is a movement in the spiritual world and can trigger battles we are not even aware of. That's why it's important to remain persistent in our prayers, even when it seems like nothing is changing. Daniel's angel fought for 21 days before the answer could finally be delivered. And what if Daniel had given up in the middle of that process? Like him, we must keep going because our answer may be on the way. Persistence in prayer is undoubtedly one of the most important pillars when it comes to receiving answers in the spiritual realm. What Daniel's story teaches us is that even when the answer seems delayed, we must continue praying, trusting that something is happening beyond what we can see. Daniel fasted and prayed for 21 days, not knowing that a spiritual battle was being fought in heaven on his behalf. Luke 18:1 brings the parable of the persistent widow, where Jesus teaches us to always pray and not give up. This shows that giving up too soon may be exactly what prevents our blessing from arriving. Often the waiting makes us question, did God hear me? Should I keep praying for this? The answer is yes, we should. There's a popular saying that goes, good things take time, and this applies very well to the spiritual realm. God works in perfect timing, and persistence in prayer keeps us connected to His will. Think about situations where you prayed for something and didn't see the result immediately, but over time, things began to move in surprising ways. Persistence transforms because it keeps our faith strong as we wait. Persisting in prayer also means understanding that the process is part of spiritual growth. It's not just about receiving the answer we want, but about what we learn along the way. The scriptures are full of examples of people who persisted in prayer until they saw miracles. Like Daniel, who prayed even when he didn't know what was happening in the spiritual realm, we must trust that our prayers are making a difference. Persistence teaches us to trust fully in God, not relying only on what we see, but believing that He is always at work. The key to persistence is that it opens doors that would otherwise remain closed. When you pray with persistence, it's like you're tearing down invisible barriers. That's why sometimes the answer takes time. But believe, when it comes, it will be at the perfect time, bringing with it more than you asked for. Persevering in prayer is like building a bridge between you and the spiritual realm, and that bridge is what will allow you to reach God's promises even when they seem distant. Faith is the driving force behind all powerful prayers. Without it, our words become empty and meaningless. Faith, as well described in the video, is the fuel that ignites the fire of persistence and opens doors in the spiritual realm. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. This means that when we pray with faith, we are actually fighting against invisible spiritual forces that want to block our blessings. Faith keeps us strong, even when the results are not immediate, because we know that God is in control and that He responds to those who believe. Faith is not just believing in something we want to happen. It's a deep conviction that even when we don't see it, God is already working on our behalf. Think of a farmer who plants a seed. He doesn't see immediate growth but keeps watering, knowing that the harvest will come soon. In the same way, our faith leads us to pray with the certainty that God is working behind the scenes. Sometimes, that faith is all we have to keep going. It keeps us praying and believing, even when the winds of doubt try to knock us down. Another fascinating thing about faith is that it doesn't need to be huge to move mountains. Jesus said that if we have faith as small as a mustard seed, we can move mountains, Matthew 17:20. This means that even the smallest amount of faith, when genuine, can make a huge difference. It's not about how big our faith is, but how deep and true it is. And the beauty of faith is that it grows as we use it. The more we pray with faith, the stronger it becomes and the more miracles we see happen. Faith is also contagious. When you pray with faith, it influences those around you. They begin to notice your confidence in God, and often this inspires them to believe too. That's why faith is so important in our spiritual battles. Not only does it strengthen our prayer life, but it also strengthens the lives of everyone watching us. When others see the results of our faith, they begin to believe that God can work in their own lives as well. God's timing is one of the hardest things for us to understand, but it's also one of the most essential aspects of walking in faith. When we pray, we expect answers to come right away. After all, we live in a world where everything is instant. But in the spiritual realm, things work differently. God operates in perfect timing, a timing we often don't understand, but that is always for our good. Luke 18:27 reminds us that what is impossible for men is possible for God, but this doesn't always mean it will happen at the exact moment we desire. The key is trusting that while we wait, God is working. This waiting period can be challenging. Often, the answer we're waiting for seems far off, and we may start to doubt whether God truly heard our prayers. But divine timing is like a well-rehearsed symphony. Every note is played at the right time, creating perfect harmony. If a note were played too early or too late, the result would be disastrous. In the same way, when we wait on God's timing, we can trust that the answer will come at the exact moment it will have the greatest impact and blessing. What we need to learn is to trust this process, no matter how difficult it may be. There's also growth that happens during this waiting time. When we don't see the immediate answer, we are challenged to strengthen our faith, to rely more on God and less on ourselves. This waiting period can be compared to the refining of gold. Impurities are removed so that something pure and precious can emerge. In the same way, the waiting time transforms us, shapes us, and prepares us to receive what God has in store for us. Instead of seeing the waiting as a punishment, we should view it as an opportunity for spiritual growth. And while we wait, we must not stop praying. Persistence in prayer, even when the answer takes time, is a demonstration of trust in God. It's like a farmer who keeps watering his crops, even when he doesn't see any immediate sign of harvest. He knows that, in due time, the harvest will come. The same is true of our prayers. Every word spoken in prayer is watering the spiritual ground, and at the perfect moment, we will see the fruits. It is this trust in divine timing that keeps us firm. Finally, waiting on God's timing teaches us a valuable lesson. The answers we seek are often beyond what we can imagine. They arrive in ways we never predicted, but that fit perfectly into God's bigger plan. And throughout the Bible, we see this happen repeatedly, from Daniel to Moses. Speaking of which, biblical stories are filled with examples that reinforce the importance of prayer and patience. Let's explore some of these inspiring stories. The biblical references present in the video are essential to understanding the transformative role of prayer and persistence in a believer's life. Daniel's story is a central example, but it's not the only one that illustrates how faith and patience can move mountains. From the Old Testament, we see figures like Moses, who led the Israelites through unimaginable challenges, always trusting in God's guidance. Moses faced Pharaoh, the most powerful man of the time, armed only with faith and persistence. He teaches us that with divine guidance, we can face any obstacle, no matter how big it seems. Another significant example is Joshua, who led the people of Israel through epic battles, often in seemingly impossible circumstances. He shows us that prayer not only connects us with God, but also gives us the courage to face the giants in our lives. Just as Joshua marched around the walls of Jericho with unwavering faith, we too must march in prayer, believing that in God's time the walls will fall. Joshua is a powerful example of how prayer and action go hand in hand in the spiritual realm. David, the young shepherd who faced Goliath, is another example of how faith and persistence can lead to miracles. David didn't have the conventional weapons of war, but he had the assurance that God was with him. He prayed and acted in faith, defeating the giant with a simple stone. This story teaches us that even when we feel small in the face of our challenges, prayer gives us the strength and confidence to overcome any obstacle. David shows us that it's not about the size of our enemy, but the size of our faith in God. The Bible also speaks about fervent and persistent prayer. In James 5:16, we read that the prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. This teaches us that when we pray with sincerity and faith, we can expect great results. Many times, we underestimate the power of fervent prayer, but figures like Daniel, Moses, and David show us that persistence can change the course of our lives and even of nations. When we pray with intensity, we move heaven and earth in our search for divine answers. The story is a clear call to action and reflection. Throughout this journey, we've been reminded of the importance of fervent prayer, persistence, and unshakable faith. It's not just about words spoken into the air, but a direct connection with the spiritual realm, where invisible battles are being fought in response to our prayers. Daniel's example shows us that what seems like a delay is often a spiritual struggle happening behind the scenes. God hears our prayers, and his answer may be closer than we imagine. The story challenges us not to give up, to keep praying even when the answers are not immediate. Persistence in prayer is the key to unlocking the blessings God has already prepared for us. Whether in the battles we face or the miracles we seek, we are encouraged to trust that there is a greater purpose in everything we go through. And just like in Daniel's case, we must believe that God is sending angels to fight for us. The final message is clear: don't block your angel. Don't let discouragement or doubt interrupt the spiritual journey you're on. Stay firm, praying with passion, believing that the impossible can become possible. Because in the realm of faith, every step, every prayer, and every moment of persistence counts. In the end, we are called to put into practice everything we've learned, remaining steadfast in faith and trusting that God's answers will come at the perfect time. If you enjoyed this story and want to keep receiving more powerful lessons like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any content. And don't forget to leave a comment sharing how this message has impacted your life. Together, we can grow in faith and discover more spiritual secrets that will transform our journeys. May your next prayers be the start of great victories.